Pauline Hanson slammed the move to close Uluru to climbers, calling it ridiculous. The One Nation leader says closing Uluru is comparable to shutting down Bondi Beach. The traditional owners decided to stop letting tourists climb Uluru in 2017, the ban taking effect this October. Hanson says it's just another example of the nanny state.
The fact is, it's money making. It's giving jobs to the Indigenous community. You've got over 400,000 to 500,000 tourists a year that want to go there and climb the rock. It's no different to coming out and saying, we're going to close down Bondi Beach because there are some people there that have drowned. How ridiculous is that? This is an iconic site for all Australians. I can't see the cultural sensitivity when people have been climbing the rock all these years and now all of a sudden they want to shut it down. No, I just don't. I don't get it.
Let's go live to the Shadow Minister for Social Services, Linda Burney. Lots to talk about. Can I first of all get your reaction to Pauline Hanson's latest gripe, this one in relation to Uluru? What are your thoughts on that?
Good morning, Annalise. Good morning, Kieran. I'm having difficulty hearing you. Well, Pauline Hanson has just shown her ignorance again. You wouldn't have people clambering over St Mary's Cathedral. The Uluru National Park, Cathedral, is always there and shared with the whole community. And I think you've got to respect the traditional owners, the dreaming stories and the fact that it is a very significant place for First Nations people, and in particular the people of that area. It's just nonsense that she's out there saying these things.
And if we move on to news of the day, deeming rates has been the big issue. Do you think that the government should be committing to having an independent advisory group set the deeming rate instead of the government?
Look, I watched your interview with Jim Chalmers earlier, and I think what Jim has said and what I've been saying for the last few days is absolutely correct. It's not currently Labor's policy to have an independent body, but clearly seniors groups and COTA think it's important to do so. Anne Rushton, I noticed this morning on radio, said that she didn't need an independent body, that she had the resources and the capacity to do it. I think that this issue needs to be looked at in the pensioner payment review that's coming up, that the government's undertaking. We don't know very much about it, but it's clearly an issue that's important to seniors groups. It's not Labor's policy at this present time. We are saying to the government, you are the government, and really it's really up to them to make that decision.
Do you accept, though, that it's not, as the Treasurer says, it's not a linear comparison between the cash rate and the deeming rate, given many part pensioners are earning more than the deeming rate would suggest, like dividends at 4.5% potentially, and superannuation at 5.5%?
Well, not a lot of pensioners are getting that return, and part pensioners and pensioners, in my experience, Kieran, are very cautious, very careful people. And at the end of the day, it is the deeming rate that determines the amount of part pension that people receive. So it's that rate that's really important in terms of the main income for part pensioners. And in that context, the government has only reduced the upper deeming rate by 0.25% and the lower one by 0.75%. And what Labor is saying is that, and it's true, it's not political rhetoric, it's absolutely true. The government has made millions and millions and millions of dollars because of a deeming rate that was not fair.
What do you make of the comments today from Council of the Ageing Executive and also from major business groups that there does need to be a rise to the New Start?
Well, I've been dealing with this issue for some time, as you know, and Labor took into the last election a very clear policy about New Start, and that was a review. And I think many people said that you don't have a review to lower the rate of New Start. We know very well that New Start is inadequate. I know people personally, my own nephews that are two of them that are on New Start, and I know the struggle that they have to make ends meet. And they're not lazy, they're not they're not bad people. They're on New Start for the moment. I also had a really good discussion about New Start with Ian Yates from COTA, the Council of the Ageing. And he said, and this is really important, and it's something that hasn't come up, that the profile of people on New Start is a very broad profile. If you're 55 years old, you've been retrenched, very hard to get another job, and often it's New Start that you're relying on. So those factors are important. Obviously, as we go into our review process as Labor, these are some of the policies that we'll review, but we also say very clearly that the review that I announced in the lead up to the election was about all working age payments, not just New Start.
It seems that it's gone beyond the need for a review, though. 25 years since a real increase. Chris Richardson, the respected economist and budget watcher, the Business Council, Australian Industry Group, everyone through to the Council of Social Service, every single group that we've spoken to says it's economic sense to lift New Start.
That's very much my understanding, Kieran, of the public discourse about New Start. And I think even John Howard said that the rate of New Start was inadequate. Labor is clearly saying that as well. And I notice that the argument has become very much from Ian Yates and others that it would be a good stimulus for the economy. And, you know, this is a third-term government, and I appreciate very much what both of you are saying, but at the end of the day, what we've seen is a lowering of the deeming rates. We don't think that's an adequate lowering, but a lowering of the deeming rates. And the natural question is, what about the rate of New Start, which does apply to a lot of older Australians, and it is very much at the feet of the government to consider these issues.
So do you agree then with the government's argument that New Start needs to be looked at in context with the other payments that people on New Start would be getting from the government as well, because they're using that argument to say it shouldn't be raised?
Well, I just draw your attention, Annalise, to the question that Anthony Albanese asked the Prime Minister on the Thursday of our first sitting week, and it was a direct question. Do you think the rate of New Start should be increased? And the Prime Minister flatly ruled it out. Now, I'm not going to try and answer questions for the government. That's not my job. My job is to advocate on behalf of people and to keep the government to account, and that's what I intend to do around this issue and others.
And on recognition, we've seen the initial speech by Ken Wyatt, some doubts raised in relation to the statement from the heart, particularly the voice to Parliament. Where are you thinking right now? Because obviously we've been here before.
Sure.
There's been a sense of optimism only for it to fall over.
Yeah.
Do you think this is doable in the next 3 years?
Thanks for that question, Kieran. It's such an important question, not just for First Nations people, but for all Australians. And I do think it is doable. There is a long way to go with this question, obviously. But when you think about what the Uluru statement said to the Australian Parliament, and I am so pleased you've asked this, I want to make this crystal clear, particularly for some of those people that are trying to muddy the waters. This is not a third chamber to the Parliament. This is a voice that has an advisory capacity only. It is not about a veto right, and it is up to the Parliament to make the final recommendation on what the voice should look like. That's what the Uluru statement has asked. And I just say again that I hear what the Prime Minister said, I hear what Ken's saying, I hear what the Craig Kellys of the world are saying, but I also know what First Nations people are saying. And Labor will work with the government. We will work through with the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community what the desires are. The real issue here, Kieran and Annalise, is that people want the voice to be to have security. And one way to do that is to entrench it in the Constitution. We are still all very burnt, and the community is still very burnt about what happened to ATSIC under the Howard Vanstone regime, and that was the disbanding of ATSIC. And people are very exercised by making sure that whatever the Voice's final form is, the entrenchment of in the Constitution means that it cannot be gotten rid of. My sense of this is a bit like a bit similar to the marriage equality discussion. When it's all said and done, people will worry will ask the question, why was this so difficult? It has no third chamber status. Hello, people, get it through your heads.
Linda, Burney, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.